So we're beginning chapter or letter 15 of Iggeres Hakodesh. A few things to know about this one. This stands out from all the other letters for two reasons. Number one, it's not a letter. All the other letters in the Iggeres Hakodesh are actually letters the Alter Rebbe wrote. And these letters are written to Chassidim. And this one is unique that it's not a letter, but it was written by the Alter Rebbe. In general, most of the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, besides the Shulchan Aruch and the Tanya, we have orally. The Alter Rebbe told them to Chassidim, and the Chassidim wrote it down. That means the Chassidim transcribed the Maimor, and that which we have a look at the Torah, all the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe. The exceptions are the Shulchan Aruch and the Tanya, which he wrote by hand. So those we have a transcript. Now, there's a few other documents that we also have handwritten, originals, and so when they wanted to include certain ones, they put it in here, and also in Kodesh Achron, we have it here as a place to put it. But not that, sorry?
Where is the originals? In the library?
Oh, so I guess they have a library, some by the Russians, I don't know where they are. I have no idea. I imagine most of it's in the library. They have a lot of the Alter Rebbe's writings. Obviously, a number of years ago, they got amazing. They got the original, I think in the 80s, they got, about year 80 something, they got the original handwritten answers that the Alter Rebbe gave to the Russian investigators. As you know, today is the third day of Hanukkah. The Alter Rebbe came out of jail for the second time. He was twice arrested. The first one, he actually sat in prison for 53 days, and that was the famous story of Yutis Kislev. The second time was 2 years later. He was in prison he was arrested for much longer. It was 8 months, but he was not in the prison. He was more like in a house, a building he had to stay in. But the accusations are very strict, and the whole attack was against Chassidus. It was a very serious attack against Chassidus, and they asked him questions on every area of Chassidus. Why? So all the answers, like the first time he gave in Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh, he wrote it, and they translated. They had the translators translate it. So they recently got the original. Recently means 40 years ago, but they got the original handwritten response of the Alter Rebbe.
Do they have it the translation also?
I don't know. When the Russian. It's a good question. Could be, and you can see the original, the whole story about the translation. But they got famous story. But the bottom line is they were translated into English. Now you can get it. I have the sefer actually here in the shul. I brought it here for you to discuss. People can read through the actual answers the Alter Rebbe gave, and the questions are not normal. Why do Chassidim shackle during davening? Certain things like this is what the Russian government wants to know. What they wanted to know is he's starting a new religion, which would be a new challenge to the Russian government, a new organization, a new following, or is it continuing Judaism? That was the big official issue. In any case, this letter is not a letter, but it's a handwritten essay of the Alter Rebbe. The second thing that makes it so special or unique is this is probably, and I'm going to say this probably not that I know it, this is what I've heard a number of times over the years, the most fundamental and foundational location of explaining the 10 Sefirot. The one ideas in Chassidus is a 10 Sefirot. What's a 10 Sefirot? Well, first of all, that's what we're going to learn about. It's a very long letter or essay. It's probably one of the longer ones in Tanya. And it's going to go through and examine the 10 Sefirot, mainly, I think, the last 7. But its main point is to understand, through them, to understand Hashem. In other words, there's something that we call, there's Hashem, God, and there's something called godliness, how Hashem expresses himself. This talks about Hashem's expression of himself. Now, Hashem's expression of self, the 10 Sefirot, they have a number of names they're called. Either they're called 10 Sefirot, which means, Sefirah basically means something which is sapphire or clear, see-through, meaning they're windows. Their windows are mediums or conduits to see godliness, or Hashem expresses godliness. Sometimes they're called levushim. Levushim, we know garments. We often call our levushim, and we refer particularly to our thought, speech, and action as garments. The truth is, if you get a little more technical, even the 10 powers of the soul are also called garments. In some places, we say that Chachma, Bina, Das, all the Sefirot or Kochas and Nefesh are called Kochas and Nefesh. Other places they're called garments. Because technically speaking, they're garments. What's a garment? A garment is a way to send an expression of who I am. If I'm dressed like a pilot, I'm a pilot. Dressed as a gardener, when you get onto the airplane, if someone's dressed more like a stewardess, that's probably not the pilot. So a garment represents or expresses who am I inside. Sometimes a garment can be deceiving because you could wear a false garment. You could dress up a Purim like a pilot, and you're not really a pilot. or someone could dress up as who's usually a gardener working in the garden, dressed up in a nice three-piece suit. So your garments is just you're expressing yourself, but it's like a costume, but it's supposed to be a costume of authenticity, expressing who you are. We're going to discuss the 10 spheres, and the reason why the 10 spheres are so special and so unique is because they are the meeting point or the place that mixes two things. What are these two things? Hashem in general, you want to describe as two opposite powers. Hashem on one hand is called infinite. He has the power of the infinite. It's infinite. At the same time, he exists within finite. Meaning, in the words that we say Chassidus, if you say Hashem is not in the finite world, you're limiting him. Hashem is true, is infinite, but he also could express himself and function in the finite world. Hashem is above the world and within the world. He is infinite and he's finite. Now, it doesn't mean that he is finite, but he expresses himself, he has power, and he functions within the finite world. Something which is physical could have godliness invested in it, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the spheres really are the place where Hashem's essence, that it's both finite and infinite, exists. Why do we say it's a meeting place? Because the meeting place of God's infinite power, which is above the world, and God's finite power, which comes into the world. Anytime God's existence is found within the world, it has to be in a finite way, and externally at least. Otherwise, it would be infinite. So the definition of God that is in the world is usually coming and interacting with the finite, interaction with the world itself. So that truth happens in the spheres. As we'll see in a few minutes or shortly, that within the spheres are invested that which is above the spheres. Or in other words, each sphere carries within it its own level, but also within it a level above it, which powers it. I guess you could say that if you have electricity coming from the power center to your laptop, no matter how many layers it was of limiting and controlling and minimizing the electricity, it's still electricity coming from the source. Meaning it's true, what came into your house is nowhere near what's coming out of the power plant. That's however many millions of watts it is, and it comes down through these boxes that contain it and restrict the electricity power. There's constriction, there's concealment, but at the end of the day, what's the inside is going to be electricity. It's not something else. It's that power. So just to start off, so we have like this. You have, let's just mention what the 10 spheres are briefly, and we'll talk about it. The 10 spheres are three of them, and I think a lot of this we know, but I'm just going to go through it. Three of them are considered the cognitive or the intellectual spheres. That's Chachma, Bina, Das. Chachma, Bina, Das, and every time we talk about spheres, we're talking about how it is in Hashem's expression and godliness and elikus expressed. Whenever we use the word Iggeres and Nefesh, we're talking about how it is within our souls. So the word spheres are the source, and this is very key to know. They're the source. Everything that we have in our neshama, as we'll see, is that we have 10 powers of the soul. Those 10 Iggeres and Nefesh, those 10 powers, come from and reflect our reflection or expression of the 10 spheres, as they are in the supernal powers of expression of Hashem. But it's not just, and this is the most beautiful and amazing part, it's not just that our Iggeres and Nefesh come from that. It's connected, which means whatever we do in our 10 Iggeres and Nefesh affects that as well. So not just as our existence of our 10 powers of the soul, a extension or an expression of the 10 spheres, but it's like a bilateral, it's some wires work both ways, or it's both ways. What we do here in our 10 powers of the soul actually affects the 10 spheres. So it's a two-way thing. It's connected, and it's, as we'll see how it's connected. So going back to the 10 spheres again, so you have Chachma, Bina, Das are the three cognitives. In general, I'm going to go into it much more later, is Chachma is that conception, that first dot, that first flash of inspiration, of information, or you could say it can be used as a flash, which is a spark, or you can explain it as a seed that has so much within it, or dot of DNA, but it's not expressed. Bina is the unpacking of that, the going on unpacking what was in that Chachma. A little example would be if you come into a house at night and it's pitch black and there's a flash of lightning for 1 second, you at that moment saw a lot. Now, if you don't right away translate that into unpacking it, you can lose it. But if right away you go, okay, on my right, I saw a staircase. On my left, I saw a window. In front of me, I saw a couch. You can start unpacking what you saw if you do it right away. It's something that could be lost. Same thing with an idea that pops into your head. So you could tell someone, I got it. Tell it to me. No. I got to figure it out. I mean, I got it, but it has to be unpacked. That's Chachma and Bina. Das means applying that. It's the application of it. It's conception. And then there's development of that conception, that idea. It's called comprehension, that we're now understanding. We're putting on the whole structure. And then application is Das. Das means making it relevant. Information that's not relevant has no Das, has no connection to me. So Das really makes relevance, makes that thing meaningful to me. It's not about me. It doesn't not important to me. It is about me. It matters. So all the information affects me. Then you have the 7 emotions, and the 7 emotions are also divided into 2. The first 6 are called masculine, and the last one is called feminine. And the first 6 are called masculine, have a name called Za. Za means Ze'er Anpin, little face. That's what it's called. We have long face, little face. So Ze'er Anpin, Za. Za are the first 6 of the middays, called the masculine. The last one, which is Malchus, is the feminine, the receiver. So 6 are normally giving, the 7th is normally receiving, but that which receives ends up becoming the biggest giver of all, as we know. So what are the 6 middays? The first 6 is Chesed. Chesed really means kindness. It's usually called kindness, but really it means attraction. I am pulled to something. So anytime there's something with me and that thing being pulled together, like by an attraction, therefore I love, comes from Chesed. Love is a subsidiary of Chesed. Kindness is a subsidiary. All things of Chesed are things of attraction. I want to relate to you. Gvura is the opposite, rejection. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's something I reject or I restrict. I hold back. So Gvura, restriction, symptom, concealment, contraction, holding back. And together they work as an amazing team. Chesed and Gvura together work amazing. You're very kind to your friends, but you don't overdo it. You have a student, you give them chocolate, but not 400 pieces, 2 pieces. So it's Chesed, but with restrictions as a balance. Then you have something called Tiferes. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Tiferes is what's called compassion, empathy, which the first 2 are primarily about myself. I feel kind. I think it should be strict. The third one, Tiferes, is not about what I feel. What do you feel? What do you need? What do you really need now? So if you want to just break it down again, Chesed is something which is I give freely. Gevura is I restrict. I don't give freely unless you earn it. You have to deserve it. That's why moms are called much more the world of Gevura, because they actually are much more in tune to what the child needs and deserves and needs to have. And Tiferes really is what does the person need? Meaning not what I think they deserve, but how much do they need? How much do they get? What's their needs? So one's what they deserve, one's what they need. Okay, Tiferes is empathy, feeling someone else. Then you have the next 3, which are the second set of the male, of the masculine, which is Netzach, Hoid, and Yisoid. Netzach is resilience. Resilience means you could say something to me and you pushed a button and now I'm going to do it. I don't care. You said, I am now going to show you that I'm going to overcome a challenge. I'm reaching deep within inside me to get something done. And that's why it's called one of the thighs. It's one of the reasons why I do things. I do things because it's a resilience. It's our midas hanitzachim. I'm going to overcome a challenge. Challenge comes my way. I'm going to overcome it. Midas hanitzachim is that ability to overcome something which flying in my face. Then you have something called Haid. Haid means submission. Another reason, the other foot's called submission. Why? Because I do things either because of resilience or submission. Either I'm going to overcome a challenge or I'm giving in to the forces outside of me. Either I'm doing it my way or I'm doing it your way. But it's one of those things. So Haid means submission. I'm now going to submit to whatever you want. You want me to do this? I'm going to give in. I'm giving over to you, and it's 2 different opposites. Again, it's a Chesed and Gevura, but again, it's me reacting or you controlling. Okay. Then you have what's called Yisoid. Yisoid represents a connection. It's a bonding, similar to Das. It was a connection, but this is a much more internal personal connection. This is why the reproductive organs are called Yisoid, because that is where there's a real connection made between the genders, or a real connection made between 2. So Yisoid means absolute connection and a oneness. That's a skashrus connection. That's the first 6 of the middays, of the motives. Then you have the last one's Malchus. Malchus is a whole book for itself, but the short of it is, you could say it means charisma, projection, how I project myself, how I am. In other words, there's a certain regality to it. There's a certain way. Malchus actually also comes from the area of dibur, speech. It's expression. So Malchus, you could say, primarily means expression, but the theme of Malchus is lesle megamei klum. I have nothing. I reflect what was given to me, which means that's why David HaMelech is famous for being called Malchus, because he had no years of his life. All the years of his life he had came as a gift from Adam or Yaakov, different opinions where they came from. But the bottom line is he had nothing. Malchus has nothing. It's like the birth of the moon. The birth of the moon starts off and the moon's not seen. Why? Because the moon has no light. Why is the moon suddenly seen? Because you see the light of the sun. So in other words, the moon is also Malchus, because the moon represents that which cannot be seen. Meaning its own light isn't seen. It doesn't have its own light. It's a reflection. And therefore, Malchus, everything it has and it reflects, it got from somewhere else. So, and that's the idea. Speech is the same way. Speech doesn't really have its identity. Speech is sharing that which came from emotion or from intellect. A person doesn't have like their own department called speech. That would be like just meaningless. Speech is usually sharing that which is deep inside me, but it's the only way to share it. These are the 10 spheres in general. The Alter Rebbe is going to go, of course, and explain it. But yes.
Why are those 6 called masculine and Malchus is feminine?
So, for the best of my understanding is because the nature of these are a set, which means nature of Malchus and Zah, or I should say Zah and Malchus is a set. Zah is always giving to Malchus, and Malchus always receiving from Zah. See, in the process, just understand the process. If you want to say it, I don't like to make pictures or designs or linear. In the channel, there's a process of everything should work inside of us. First thing should start off in seichel. It comes into our brain, and we think about something. We think about why a person is good to me. We think about how a person is good to me. We think about why a person is bad for me. We think about how Hashem is kind to us. We think about something is a good thing to eat, and then we're supposed to have middays. That's why the seichel has another name. It's called father and mother. Chachma and bina are actually called father and mother, and it matches again the way a creation happens. The father gives a seed, the mother develops it. The chachma is the seed, the flesh, and the bina is the development. What's the children? Emotions. If a person functions and they should as a Jew and in a healthy way, your emotions come after intellect, which means I feel my mind knows a certain thing. I think about it, and therefore I develop a feeling. I develop a love for something I should. I develop a distaste something I shouldn't have. I don't like things I shouldn't like. And then, so midas are actually a child, a product of intellect. In other words, midas are a product of seichel. That's what we're having in the Tanya these days, in the daily share. Now, in an unhealthy situation, it's the other way around. I want something, I love something, I hate something, and I come up with a reason why. And that's like anti-Semitism. You hate the Jews. Let me think why in a minute. Give me a second, I'll tell you why. You know, it's like we say, it says, a famous telegram, they say, guy sends, the Jewish mother sends, start worrying, details to follow. We have the emotion. We'll tell you reasons later. So, but that's unhealthy. That's how it is. I want to eat good food. I convince myself afterwards. It's not about index. My diet allows me to have, 2 pieces of fried food a week. And I do this every day. We have all these theories why, and that's emotional behaviors coming as a pre to intellect. But the healthy way is intellect, then emotions, and then all those lead to malchus.
So midot are not coming from your heart?
They are, but it's your heart following your mind. You could say it in 2 ways. You could say midas following seichel, or you could say your heart following your brain. But it's the same idea. That first comes the brain, first comes the intellect, and then comes the emotions. Now, where is the seat of emotions in your heart? But your heart should follow, meaning what your heart feels. Should my heart be sad now? Should I desire something or reject it? That should come. My brain tells me this is good for me, and therefore my heart decides, my heart knows I should want this. My brain tells me it's bad for me, so I shall not want it. So while it's true that the emotions are in the heart and intellect's in the brain, but what emotion to have should be a result of what you're thinking. And you think about it. If ever you're sitting in your car and you're thinking deeply about something tragic that happened, something emotional took place, something important, you could start actually getting worked up. You can get angry. You can cry. You could be angry at somebody. You could be happy. Why is that? Because you're thinking about something creates emotions. The more you think about a fear, the more afraid you'll be. The more you think about somebody embarrassed you, the more you could really get all worked up and angry. You see the person, you could burst out. What's the problem? I was thinking about how much you offended me last year. But that's how you work.
5 years ago.
What draws, or 20 years ago, exactly, at my bar mitzvah. But what is the, you didn't invite me, so, but I didn't, it's like It's like your parents say, tell you the wedding. What do you mean? How could you not invite? You weren't born yet. Still, But the bottom line is, so emotions are a result of the way I think. That's a healthy. It's called the parents and the children. Malchus is the receiver of all that. Because Malchus receives from Zah, see, Zah receives from Seichel. But in the world of Zah, the world of the six middays, those now spill into Malchus. So Malchus is the female or the feminine receiving all emotions, and now it projects to the next person or to the next level. Malchus is the bottom of the 10 Sefirot, and that goes now, let's say Malchus Datzilus, now feeds Chachma of Bria. Everything goes in the process. So Malchus always receives from Zah and passes it on to the next thing or expresses it, like Dibor, like speech. Speech receives from all the things inside, and then it comes out, what you want to say. Now, Malchus, just so you know, plays a huge role in the whole story of our function of expression, because Malchus, as we know, the feminine arouses and elicits a behavior from the masculine. And that's why if a person talks about something, they'll start crying. If it's emotional. Yesterday, unfortunately, we were watching a funeral that was going on in Australia. The more someone tries and speak, the more they started crying. Why are you crying now? This information was fresher 5 minutes ago, because now I'm talking about it. And when you do Malchus, you do Dibor, it wakes up the feelings and it reaches deep inside from inside you. So Malchus is the one that elicits and encourages that the Zah should give, the Sefirot should give. But Malchus is the one that elicits it, and the Malchus receives it, and then gives it over next again. Develops, it takes it to the next level. That's in general. Of course, we're going to go much more. There's a question is, who cares? Why? So on the level of function, it helps us understand ourselves, to know how to control our emotions, what our emotions are, it's learning about our Keiches HaNefesh helps us become better people, helps us understand to go seichel, intellect should guide our emotions. But there's something much more important, and that's what we're talking about in this chapter. We have a mitzvah, an obligation to understand godliness, to understand God. How can we get there? We're going to see in the next few lines, what we're going to study now, is the path and the way to discover the Sefirot is by looking into ourselves. The more we understand our own neshama, and not our guf, we're focused, even though the guf also, but we're focused on neshama. The more we are in tune and attached and aware and understand our neshama, the more we understand God, because God created man in his image, and we say man, we're particularly referring to about his neshama. The neshama is a miniature of the Sefirot. You want to know the Sefirot? Look at this. You want to know, sometimes you see a certain, I don't know, I guess you could say apple. You want to know which tree it came. Look, if it's an apple, it came from this tree. If it's an orange, it came from that tree. We are a representation of that. So we are, our neshamas are products of godliness, or as we'll see, they are godliness. And when we use that say products or are, as we'll see, there's a difference between when Hashem gives life to something, or Hashem self is actually included. Hashem is actually a part of it. In the Shema we say, we had in Tanya a few days ago, it's an actual part of God. And the actual part of God actually becomes into this world, which is the impossible. For infinite to come into this world is the most incredible thing. And that's what we're going to talk about. Let's start the chapter now, and we'll see where we're going with this.
So on the other hand, you're saying if we have a mitzvah to understand Hashem, but on the other hand, we have to do mitzvahs without understanding.
Okay. So there's two things. Very, very good. There's two things. The foundation. So there's actually a few layers. Let me take a step backwards before I answer your question. Let me just say something before that. We can't really understand God. It's impossible, because it's like saying I understand God is like saying that idea you just told me is so good, I'm going to carry it in my hands and put it on the shelf. Physical hands cannot hold an idea. It doesn't work that way. It's just a different type of system. But brains can grasp an idea. Same thing as physical minds can't grasp godliness. It's the same logic. Saying my mind understands God is like saying I can hold an idea in my hand. You're a physical existence, you can't understand God. But we could understand it in metaphors and concepts and ideas and what's called knowing more about it, understanding parts of it, understanding how it functions, what it does, what it isn't. So, or a lot of metaphors, as we'll see. That's first of all. So the understanding that we have, that's why the whole mitzvah of believing in God and knowing God is really one thing. The more you know God, the more you realize his faith. Because the more you know, the more you realize God's above understanding. A guy who doesn't know what God is says, yeah, I know God. Yeah, God, he's a powerful being out there. The more you learn, you realize I have to have combined my knowledge a lot of faith, because my knowledge reaches a certain maximum, a limit, and then after that, it's all faith. Okay. Now, as far as if we do Yiddishkeit or Torah mitzvahs with understanding or with faith, gets down to one of the most really geschmack sichas that I learned on this subject. And that is, to me, I say geschmack means I understood it a certain amount anyway. And that is what the Rebbe famously explains in the Haggadah, where he says, we have one of the weird, we spoke about this a couple of years ago, but real briefly. In the Haggadah, it says that the Chacham, Mahu Omer, what does the Chacham say to the four sons, each one, or the four kids, they each say something? He says, what is the story? What's the Paschal sacrifice? But he asks, what are all the laws that we do? What is it? And we answer him, don't eat after the Afikoman anything. It's like, what's quicker, to New York or by train? Pizza, because ice cream has no bones. It's like one of the things my kids told me. I have no idea what the question or the answer was. And the Rebbe explains the question the kid's asking is, a smart kid, why does Yiddishkeit have different parts? We have edus, which are sort of symbolic. We have chukim, which are irrational, no reason to it, like don't mix meat and dairy, the red heifer. And then we have laws of like don't steal, don't kill, honor your parents. Is religion of Yiddishkeit a intellectual understanding, or is it blind faith? Which one is it? It's got to be one of those. It can't be both. Which one is it? And we say, don't eat anything after the Afikoman. What does that mean? It says the Afikoman was a very interesting thing. The Afikoman had to be eaten when you were full. You had to be after the meal. Today, we have Afikoman, we just have a piece of matzah. In the olden days, that was the main course, the lamb. The big lamb and the mar and the whole deal with the matzah mar and the lamb was after you already had, chicken and turkey and potatoes, and you ate a whole meal. Well, that potatoes back then, but after the whole meal, and now you're ready to have like just a little bit of dessert, and you have a little bit of ice cream. Now you're full. And say, okay, bring out the lamb. And then we say, and after you have the lamb, don't eat anything else, so the taste and flavor should linger in your mouth all night. So we ask a simple question: you want me to enjoy the flavor? Give it to me after a salad. I'll have a salad. I'm not so hungry, but I'm going to enjoy the lamb when I'm still in the mood of eating a lot of food. You give me a piece of lamb to eat when I'm stuffed, I'm full. I don't have the enjoyment. So I don't understand. You want me to enjoy it? Give it to me in the beginning of the meal. If the flavor and enjoyment isn't important, why do you tell me let the flavor linger all night? Don't eat anything afterwards. And the answer is, God says the reason you have the Afikoman should be only one reason, because I told you to do it. But now that you're doing it, I want you to enjoy it. I want the flavor to linger. In other words, the foundation has to be that I do Yiddishkeit. Every mitzvah has to be done with the foundation that I do it because God said so, not because it makes sense to me. I don't avoid stealing or respect my parents, or all the things I do is not because it makes sense. It's because God said so, whether I like it or not. And that's my foundation. And that's why I do it. Once I'm doing it, there's a mitzvah to go and understand and appreciate and figure out why. What's the message? What's the meaning? How is it? How do I experience it on an intellectual and emotional level? What's the value of the mitzvah? What's the purpose? What's the lesson? So, in other words, you have to have both. But the reason you're eating is not because you're hungry. I'm not doing the mitzvah because that makes sense to me. That's the point. So the answer to the question is, the foundation of a mitzvah has to be faith. But once you're doing it, you have to try and understand it. And the more you understand, and this is the whole chiddush. I should have said this earlier, but thank you for asking. The phenomenal thing about this chapter is, this is the first place we have a true explanation and insight. You see, the Baal Shem Tov taught stuff on a very deep level. The Maggid taught stuff on a very deep level. The Alter Rebbe brought it down this deep, deep level to our minds to understand it. That's why he was called Chabad. He was the first to take Chassidus that was above our intellect and bring it down in Seichel. You could understand the impossible. You can comprehend the that which you could understand. Meaning, he brought down into Seichel that which is impossible to understand. There's actually a beautiful story when the Maggid came to the Baal Shem Tov to learn. So he would try to show you how the Baal Shem Tov saw things. So the Baal Shem Tov was a brilliant, obviously tzaddik on every level. And so the Maggid came to him and wanted to see, should I follow the Baal Shem Tov? It's a long he came a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov asks him, do you know how to learn Kabbalah? He says, sure. So he brings him a book of Eitz Chaim. Reb Chaim tells recordings of the Arizal's teachings. He says, explain me this section here. So he goes and explains it. So the Maggid explains it to Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov says, no, you're missing it. He says, I stand by what I said. What I said is the correct interpretation. He says, you're missing it. He says, could you explain it to me? He says to the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov says, sure. And Baal Shem Tov starts talking. And as he talks, in this section, names all the angels. Suddenly the room is filled with light. And he could feel the angels. And he could feel everything that he was talking about was actually real. He actually felt the room filled with light and change and energy. And when Baal Shem Tov was done, he said, that's the pshat. You had the right information, but you missed the whole thing. It's not some intellectual thing. It's much bigger than that. It was bigger than intellect. Understanding it was not the key. Could you experience it? Could you feel it? Could you know? It wasn't until the Alter Rebbe that the key was understanding it. We don't maybe see the angels, we don't feel it, but could you understand it in your mind? This is the first time we're getting to understand the Alter Rebbe is taking ideas and spheres, the godliness, and letting us understand it. What does it mean? What does it mean, chesed? And what that means is that's Hashem's sphere of chesed. What's gevura? In other words, all the part that God has an arm, God has a leg, what do all these things mean? This is what this chapter is going to do. What is godliness? What is Hashem's expression in the world? And all of it we're going to understand from the neshama, but it's not like the neshama. The neshama is like, meaning, sometimes someone meets me and tells me, you're just like Mendel. I said, no, Mendel's just like me. It's like all the quirkinesses, you got it from me. Don't blame it on him. So this is the chapter we're doing here. So we'll start. Let's do a couple lines here to start it off. And we start off with a quote from Mishlei, where Shlomo Melech writes in the very beginning of the 6th pasuk of Mishlei, the very beginning of Proverbs. He's used a line here. He says, "Lahavin mashal umalitza," to understand. Again, these are looking in the English translation. It doesn't help me. Different definitions of a metaphor or an allegory. It's two different types of things that we only understand through an explanation. In other words, if I want to explain to somebody who doesn't see colors, right, and I want to tell them that red is a warmer color and blue is a more cooler color, he has no idea what I'm talking about. But he can repeat that and say red's a warmer color. Now, but does he really understand it? No. One day, if someone gives a blessing and this blind person can start seeing, they'll go, oh, that's why you have a warmer. It's like, not as cold. And it's when we talk about ideas, there are certain things we have no idea what it is. So we give metaphors. There are certain things we know a little bit about it. For example, we'll see in a minute. He wants to talk about the love of Torah and how so much is go after Torah. So the Shlomo Melech describes the love of Torah to a love of a woman. He says it should be like something which is the Torah is like a wife, and something which is forbidden is like a harlot. Now, does that mean if you understand your wife, you understand Torah? No. But if you start learning about what a wife provides, a partner provides in your life, you'll appreciate how valuable Torah is. So it doesn't mean that when we understand this thing, we understand what the metaphor was about, but it helps us get a glimpse into it. He says, Lahavin mashulu militza, to understand like a metaphor and allegory, again, two different words, whatever they mean. Divrei chachamim, the wisdom of the sages, v'chiduseim, and their riddles, meaning to appreciate all these things. And again, the first two, mashul militza, refers to Torah Shabbat, the written Torah. Divrei chachamim v'chiduseim refers to the oral Torah, the oral stuff that was passed down. The Inyan has spheres of what they say about the spheres. So the spheres are what we're going to talk about here. The whole chapter 15 is explaining what are the spheres, what is this expression of godliness in the world. It's something that we know. What I have learned from the Rebbes before me. Meaning, he learned this from the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, those people who taught him. To understand just a little bit in our minds, to comprehend, that's the whole point of this section, to understand godliness. What does it mean when the verse tells us, and for my flesh I understand God? Now, it doesn't mean here the phone. We'll see what it really means is the soul within the flesh, we'll see soon. But it says when a person looks into himself, because the person is called Adam. God, when you have in the prophecy, I think it's Yecheskel, where it talks about Adam Elakise, the man, that's godliness. Adam refers to godliness as it expresses itself in the 10 spheres. Why? A man in general, when I say man, I don't mean man or woman. I mean human. Person, thank you. A person is considered complete. Hashem designed a person complete. 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, all the different components, 248 of this, 365 of that, all the parts. That is called the God's in Hashem's expression. It's called Adam because it's called Shleimosa de Kula. It's complete. He has everything there, and everything includes the infinite, like we said before, and the finite and the limited. It excludes all types of expression. Everything is included in that. So we say if a person looks at their body is an expression, and we know this from a lot of Chassidus. Everything within our body. This is how the Rabbeim, we know the famous story. I think it's with the Middle Rebbe. I think it's with him. That Marash was with. That his son, I think one of the young, next generation Rebbe came in excited. Doctor just found out that when you lean back, there's a little thing in your neck, a little blood vessel or artery. You lean back, helps you remember. You lean forward, helps you think. Something that came out with it in the 1870s, 1880s. So the Rebbe went over to the bookcase and took down where it says in the Ma'amar Chassidus some years ago. They said, how'd they know? You see, he didn't ask. He said, how'd they know? You think they knew because they learned medicine? He said they understood godliness. And the human body is all godliness expressed in the human form. But that meaning everything in our bodies is exact, and it's all part of, so when we do a mitzvah, we do something, it's all some spiritual activity going on. Someone just showed me that they came out from some university in Ohio. They sent me a link to it, that when you put tefillin on your arm for about 20 minutes a day, it somehow affects your blood pressure. Yeah. You saw this? It affects your blood pressure. That actually you deal better with heart attacks or heart issues, and you have a better blood pressure. Again, is it true or not? I don't know. But it's amazing how they see how tefillin, years ago they came out with this thing from the Chinese that there's two important pressure points. One over here and one over here. If you press them, it helps. If they're true or not, I don't know, but it makes sense because everything is Torah. Nothing is like random. It's like, okay. What does that mean? The purpose is it means to understand a little bit. Of course, to understand the whole thing is not our department. A little bit of godliness, may he be blessed. May nefesh, from the soul, adam. It doesn't mean from the flesh itself. It means from the soul that's enclosed in the person. That soul, I'm going to see why the soul in a minute. That's what we're going to finish with today. Why the soul? Then we said, look, nefesh. May nefesh hamalu beshes. You see that? May nefesh hamalu beshes b'basar adam. Yeah. It's the soul which is enclosed, hamalu beshes. Meaning, we're not talking about the basar itself, the meat itself. We're talking about the soul that's enclosed in the body. Meaning, you have the body. And what is your body's life force? Your body's life force is the soul. He says, from the soul that's in your flesh. Like the sages teach us when it says, let my soul bless Hashem. And we say, Ma HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Apostle says, Molias Ha'elam, Afan Hasham Chulu, means Molias Guf. Just like a Hashem's godliness fills the world, a person's soul fills his body. And I'll finish off with this next line. And especially based on teaching of the Zayar Pasuk, that he blew into his nostrils a breath of life. With this statement, a breath of life, we're going to understand, and we'll talk about it next week, why from our soul specifically. And the answer is, when you speak, you're not using your deepest essence self. You could talk for an hour, 2, 3, some people for more, and talk. You don't get exhausted unless you're not feeling well. But because your speech doesn't take so much of self-exertion, but blowing with strength to fill up a balloon, how many balloons could you fill up? How much could you blow? Because you're giving a lot more of yourself. When Hashem made all the things in the world, he says he spoke. He spoke and he spoke and he spoke. When it came to our soul, he blew. Why? He blew self. That means, where do we find godliness in this world for real? The actual godliness in our soul. Everything else is speech. That is breath. If we could examine that little breath God put inside of us, that soul, we can understand godliness. And that's where we're going to go with this now. And we're going to go into that if you want to truly understand the spheres, which are the creation of the world, you have to find a piece of God to analyze. It's like, they can find a DNA of a dinosaur, a DNA of some creature. I could learn all about it. Find something from Mars or rock, and if you can find a piece of God in this world that dissect it, that would be so cool. We have it. It's called our soul. It's a piece of God that he blew into our nostrils, and that is the thing we're going to talk about. And the more we understand our soul, that's how we can understand the spheres, and that's where we're going to go with this chapter. So we'll stop here, and Hashem should bless the neshamas to those who are murdered. It is absolutely heartbreaking, and it's the more I listen or watch and hear, I didn't even realize the depth of how far the sadness was. I didn't know this until yesterday. Last night I was listening to an interview of some of the friends of the Schlanger family. Here, we'll see. We'll see if what?
The government did.
Yeah. I've heard very strong condemnation from many people in Australia, blaming this completely on the government. I heard it from Netanyahu. Rabbi Shapiro gave a speech yesterday, unbelievable.
His daughter, the guy, Morrison, his daughter spoke. She said completely, it's for sure. It's
They allowed. That's what happens.
The parents of the 10-year-old girl who got killed. The same thing. It's the government. It's the government's fault.
That's what are they saying? We're gonna make stricter gun laws. It's not gun laws.
And they still don't know if it's terrorist or.
Well, no, of course. Rage. But you notice they didn't shoot anybody else on the beach. They didn't go and shoot joggers, people swimming. Yeah. They shot only Jews. The rabbis were shot right away, and he actually went. It's unbelievable. This guy went towards the shooter and asked him like this. He went like this. Please stop. He told the guy, "Please stop it." And the guy just shot him. That's how Elish Langer was killed. But the craziness that went on.
He was standing like this.
That was Morrison. That was Morrison also. Yeah. He threw a brick at the guy. But Elish Langer, the film said he went over to the guy, one of the shooters, to tell him, "What are you crazy? What do you? I mean, you can't reason with these people. They're sickos."
Who was the guy that took the rifle away from?
That was an Arab guy. Guy.
He has a little store there, and he just came not long ago to Australia.
He just was so bothered by this guy. He dived at him.
So an Arab.
He was shot like 4 times afterwards by the other guy. Okay. And they already gave gifts of him of over almost $2 million. When people around the world, like in America, like famous actors and famous people, Bill Ackerman, I think, sent him $50,000, basically as a thank you for what he did, because he saved lives for sure. I mean, the stupid police there.
But he was also injured, right?
Yeah, he was shot like 4 times. Yeah, but unbelievable. You see, he's being wheeled away in the hospital, and he's saying, "Thank Allah, thank this, thank that," that he was able to do and help out and do something to stop this crazy guy. I actually, for the first time ever, I saw a bunch of videos of Arabs speaking up publicly, which I'm not saying it means anything in the big picture. I've never seen Arabs speak up at the whole October 7th. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, besides, of course, the famous ones who are pro-Israel.
There was some Arab, but I don't know. He went up to a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi but I don't know if it was there or in some other city.
Yeah.
He was, "I'm so sorry that." Just get
the Muslim guy went by, he gave him a hug. There's actually, this guy also was doing a project. I just heard also yesterday. I saw letters that he wrote. Elish Langer, I'm going to take some in a second.
Only sugar in it. This is one that's on the outside, but there was nothing on the inside either. So,
all right, I have to have at least one. Wait till I give it to the Bacham that are here. You're going to enjoy it.
It's Mazonas, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I liked.
Yeah, there's nothing inside.
Shackle.
Shackle?
Yeah, they're gluten-free. Wow, they're really light.
Mm-hmm.
I might have 2 more. You can eat the whole plate like this. You can eat the entire plate in about 1 minute.
You could, I mean, because it is.
Yeah.
So what did you use? Almond?
No, potato starch.
Oh.
That's all it has, and it's potato. You know that.
Deb, I'm sorry, put you there. You can't have any, but there's some really good. Let's show what you're missing. Hold on.
Last year I had with the recipe that I found online.
You see, she has a whole tray of them. So, wait, Manucha's coming to see.
Manucha, come look. You see this?
So Manucha is gluten-free, so we would love to have the recipe, because the gluten-free ones she made last year didn't work. I have could I get the recipe from you to share with my daughter-in-law? What?
I'll send it to you.
I eat donuts with them because I made these donuts.
It's potato, if you know what that is. It's where you boil water and
just make sure you stop by the other kitchen or work in
margarine.
The kitchen.
Then you dump in the
I don't want to get behind your paychecks.
Potato starch in it, and you mix it until it's all together. Then you take 1 egg at a time and you blend it in with a blender, and then you use that so it kind of like explodes. So there's inside.
Okay.
send it to
Well,
you.
if it, I'll look at the recipe, and then if Manuka doesn't understand the directions, I'll contact you.
Oh, it's very easy.
Yeah,
It's
my
really
glasses.
easy.
Okay. Thank
Otherwise,
you.
if you can't help the fly here, she'll get some. They're very good. All right. Well, see you. Happy Hanukkah. Enjoy. Travel safe.
Thank you. Thank you.